Hey YouTube, and welcome back to the Class Corvette build. In the last video I built the hull, and I am still in the process of sorting out the filling on that, for certain parts. In this one I am just going to do some small builds for parts of the superstructure, etc., and the dinghies and the lifeboats. So there are 4 of these Carly floats which come in the kit. They come in half like this. Now in the bottom section there is a rim, and this is supposed to help you locate the top half. Now what I found was that whilst it held the top half in place, it offset it slightly and you couldn't get a good fit. So I have trimmed this rim away so that I can put the top of the Carly float on and match up all the rope work around the edge, because it wasn't letting me do that previously. So once that's done, it's just a case of putting your glue on and gently marrying up. So I am happy with that, and it does, when it's glued, you do get a rim, unfortunately, which you will need to file in order to obviously make it presentable. Otherwise you'll get a seam line all the way round the life raft, Carly float life rafts. So that's that. The other kit, the other part of the kit was the lifeboats, and I started with this. The easiest way I found to do this was to do the rear. Allow that to just go off a little bit, and then I can just run the glue down one side and then the other, and that is that done. Now on the lifeboat itself there's an ejection pin mark, or there's 2 ejection pin marks. There's one here at the front, one here at the back on this, and they are quite noticeable. I have tried to remove them, but the plastic in its pre-assembled form was quite flimsy, so I didn't want to press down too hard. So now that it's glued together, what I will do is I will go back and use a file at a later stage to remove those. So the next thing I'm going to do is the superstructure above the engine room. And the reason I'm doing just these little bits is because they're items that can be done, because I'm not going to glue them to the ship until after they've been painted and weathered. Oh, well, not necessarily weathered, but certainly after they've been painted. So these can be done, and I can add on all the detail as necessary. And then, because for example on this rear bulkhead there's a porthole window, I can paint it and because I will still have access to it from underneath, I can then add the glass in after it's been painted. So and then you need to make sure that you get these up the right way. So on the side plates, you've got these areas here where the name plates go for whatever ship it is you're doing from the model kit. And obviously that needs to go uppermost, so you need to make sure that you get the right positioning. Okay, and the top of that is done. So the next part, you'll actually notice that there is a slight curve to this particular part of the architecture. And that just follows the line of the deck plating as it is on the hull. So you will also find that there are some they're not locating lugs, but they just provide a slight space. I don't know if you can see that on the inside. They just provide a slight space between the plastic line that you use for locating this particular wall section to the top of the engine bay. And that is essentially that. So now that that's done, I'm actually just going to pop it to one side with a bit of weight on it, just to keep it down. So just like that. Okay, so the next part that I'm going to do is the wheelhouse. Now, the thing about the wheelhouse is that there are two doors on either side of the wheelhouse, and the problem is that from what I can see from research is that they are in the wrong position. So when you come to build the wheelhouse, you will notice it's just basically four walls, but this part here represents a sliding door. I am going to slightly change that. I'll add some plastic card in to make it look like it's got a proper sliding door. But this is the front of the wheelhouse and this is the rear. And from what I've been able to see, looking at plans, is that these doors should be at the front of the wheelhouse. Certainly on HMCS Sackville, which is the museum Corvette in Canada, these doors are at the front. It's an easy enough issue to rectify. All you do is just turn them round and swap sides. But the reason that these are at the front is because quite often in the wheelhouse, if I show you on here, so the doors would be this end, and then quite often you have this part of the wheelhouse at the front, and then a bulkhead, which is the radio operator's room or something else. So the doors should be here at the front of the wheelhouse and not at the back, because normally at the back is some sort of either ready cabin or radio operator's cabin. But as I say, that is easily enough rectified. Just by placing these to the front like thus, rather than having them this way round, so that the doors are at the rear of the wheelhouse cabin. Put them to the front like so. And as I said, the doors themselves are actually quite basic, and what I intend to do is, because what it should do is it should be sliding, so I'll just add in some extra plastic card and I'll make another plastic card door to go over that, because it slides back on rails. So I'll just put some plastic card there to act as railing, and then have a token door there, which will then give the illusion that it can be slid backwards and forwards. You also need to ensure that when you do this, the back wall lines up with the sides. Okay, so there is a lip, and this is part of the walkway around the sides and the rear of the wheelhouse cabin. I am going to look at putting in a floor to the cabin, and once I've done that, I'm going to see if I can model a replica of the interior of the wheelhouse, so that you may not be able to see much, but I'm hoping that it, at least if people do try and look in it, you will see something. Getting the walls around the wrong way. it's best to make this on a flat surface so that you can get everything lined up correctly. And use the grid work on your cutting mat to ensure that your structure is square, like so. And that is essentially the wheelhouse completed. So I'll just give that a second to go off. The next thing I'm going to assemble is the funnel housing that the funnel sits on. Which again is just a case of placing all the parts onto the ceiling of this particular structure. So you've got the lip, which you use as the locating key. And then once you've done that, place in the next part. And again, this is keyed slightly so that these two parts, so that this part butts up against this rear bulkhead. Like so. And then just add in the glue. Now this, once you've got this in, okay, you can then just trim off anything which overhangs, because sometimes when you do plastic kits you do get a slight variation. Okay. Then I am just going to pop them funnel together. Like that. Okay, and that has actually gone together better than I was expecting. I'm hoping I won't need to do too much sanding on that particular piece, but the funnel should fit on like so. And then in front of that we have, take that up now, the mast platform. So this bulkhead with the two portholes goes at the front, and as you can, I don't know if you can see, but that's slightly warped, but all being well, the plastic weld should take care of that once it's in position. If not, I can add in just a little bit of filler to sort that problem out. Then on this side there is a sidewall with a door and a porthole. And then on the opposite side it is just literally a blank wall. Like so. So when you come to position these onto the ship itself, I haven't actually done anything to the hull just yet, but I will just show you the placement of these parts. And so the wheelhouse locates here. The mast housing is there, and then the engine room superstructure is here. And then the funnel and funnel housing is just on there. So that would be what it looks like. The decks are just rested on top at the moment. I haven't glued them in place. I won't glue them in place until such times as I have painted the hull, and then they're ready to be installed after I've then installed the clear plastic portholes. So join me next time and we'll do a little bit more. Okay, thanks. Bye-bye.